Okay, so now we're going to go into spring water in a drought and conservation report, what the spring water fields look like. So I'm going to click into spring water, the spring water source type here. You can see this pop-up shows up. This pop-up is optional information. On the left-hand side is database information from our SWRCB database. This information cannot be changed by the user, but can be changed if there's definitely a need to change that information, such as I'm no longer using the source. This is an inactive source, or maybe it's an emergency source. This is a standby source. I don't use this on an often basis. Maybe it's not a spring. Maybe it's a well. For whatever cases, if you see anything that needs to be changed here, please contact your local district or LPA office. For springs, we have three very basic questions. We ask what the previous summer flow rate was. So you can enter a flow rate here. The second question we ask is the June to September, right? Previous summer flow rate units of measure. The reason why we ask for previous summers, we're looking for a seasonal minimum. We're understanding that between June and September, we need the seasonal minimum flow rate to figure out what's the least that this source really does produce on a regular basis. Now we're going to have the flow rate for this year because we're going to receive that data hopefully from you folks, but this allows us to determine what the flow rate capacity is of this spring. Springs don't do pump tests, typically don't do any sort of like understanding of like what your max flow rate is. They change through the seasons, so we're using this to calculate that source capacity. Springs usually have a water rights ID as well. So water rights IDs are issued by the Division of Water Rights for surface water type sources. They have a definition of a spring. And so if you have a spring that has a water rights ID, please enter them here. And if you don't have one and you want to get rid of this pop-up from coming up every time, you're going to put unknown, hit enter, and it'll show up here. But we're looking for something like this. Don't put a system name. Don't put a system number. Don't put a source number. We're looking for a water rights ID that gives you the authority to be able to divert from this location. So I'm going to save that, exit out of that. And we're going to get to the first question, which is very common. This is in groundwater and in surface water, is whether you utilize this source during the reporting period. So this is intended for the times when you have a well pump is pulled, where you cannot use the source for whatever reason. Maybe it's in litigation, it's run out of water rights, run out of adjudication rights. It's off for nitrate, whatever the reason may be. You did not utilize the source at all during the reporting period. You could have run it to waste, could have run it pumped to waste, you could have run it for sampling, but you did not run it into the distribution system. Your flow meter is saying there is no amount produced for this reporting period. Then you can hit yes, right? So if you used it, you hit yes. If you did not use it, you're going to hit no. What that allows you to do is to enter a 0 for potable amount produced during a reporting period. If I am utilizing this source and I try to put a 0 under potable amount produced during a reporting period, I'm going to get an error, cannot be 0. So if you did not utilize the source, you're going to need to say, no, I did not utilize the source. But if I put yes, I'm going to be asked only 2 questions for springs, 3 questions. Current flow rate measured within the reporting period. This is pretty synonymous with instant flow rate. I don't actually have a great definition for either one. I think they really should be the same. Enter the flow rate of a spring measured commonly using a flow meter during the current reporting period. This is a snapshot. Typically for a spring, it's pretty consistent, whether you turned it on just now or let it run for an hour, it's not really going to change all that much. Some of the horizontal wells, if they're in fractured rock, could change over time. They may need time to recover. So if that's the case, then you may wish to get more of an average or get more of an instantaneous flow rate, so you can get that higher amount and see how long you can sustain that. So current flow rate, just a snapshot. We have a date measured here, and we have a units of measure in gallons per minute, gallons per day, or cubic feet per second. We have potable amount produced during reporting period. So now we're going to put a number. We have our flow rate here. We have a date measured. The date in which I measured that flow rate doesn't have to be at the end of the month. Could be any time within that month. I could have a measurement for that. The date measure here cannot be edited. It's defaulted to the end of the month because we're wanting to collect the reporting period's potable amount produced. And the units of measure between acre feet, gallons, 100 cubic feet, and million gallons. So we can have that. The last question is, was the source under curtailment? So if you had a water rights ID, if not, no applicable water rights. If you had a water rights ID, you can mark whether you thought you were under curtailment or not, or whether you don't know. All curtailments have been stopped at this point. So the answer is no if you have water rights or no applicable water rights. Okay, so that suffices for this reporting. And I'm going to stop the recording.